Hello and welcome to the March issue of Adult Art Club from the Seminole County Library System. I'm Joan Madsen, and thank you for joining me to see the project that we completed. It was based on this photograph from Pixabay of 3 swim cabins or boating cabins downloaded from Pixabay, taken in British Columbia. We'll be using primary colors, yellow, blue, and red, and black and white. These are the materials we'll be using, but I have those also listed below in the description of this project. And I'll be sharing with you how to blend colors as well as how to create reflection in the water. So it's a twofold lesson. And then in the end, you'll have your own image. This was the completed project. Now we're going to start by doing some blending. These are the 3 buildings. It's orange, blue, and yellow. They'll be reflected in the water, and we'll be creating brown as well as green and lightening the sky. I'm using a pad of computer paper in order to demonstrate blending of the colors. And I'm going to start by using the sanding block. These are available in all the art supply stores and some of the office supply stores. I'm going to mix the orange with blue and, with yellow and red. I'm letting the dust fall for the paper. Just blending it around with a cotton swab. Also picking some up from the sanding block and applying it to the paper as well, which can also be done. The best thing to do is to practice and develop your own style and see what feels most comfortable for you in blending. Obviously, a nice color wheel will be helpful so that you can get an idea of what colors are involved in creating a 3rd or 4th color. The primary colors are easy for us. Yellow and blue makes green, red and blue makes purple, yellow and red makes orange, and then we go from there and create more colors. And to create shades of colors, we add black, and to create tints of colors, we add white. And now I've added a little bit more so I can make brown. And now I'm just going to demonstrate applying the pastel directly to the paper. And blending right on the paper. And when I add the blue, technically I should be able to make a black, but it's very difficult to make a true black. But we do come up with a nice brown. And if I add a little bit of black, I'll make a darker brown. And we can come up with some good shades of gray. Again, this takes some practice, and it is well worth your while to sit with these materials and see what you can come up with. Yellow and blue, I'm going to make green. Keep needing to swap out those cotton swabs so I have a clean swab to work with. And of course the green is going to be yellow green as you add more yellow, and blue green as you add more blue. Now I'm going to use my favorite blending tool, my finger. I'm going to lighten the shade by adding white. And I'm going to create a gray by adding more white to that dark brown that I created. And this would be how you create tints. Just cleaning off that yellow pastel stick by wiping it on the paper towel. Now we're going to start with the sky. And I'm going to start laying out the bright blue. And lightening it with the white. But this is a very hard charcoal, white charcoal. It doesn't blend as much as well as I like, so I'm going to switch out to Rembrandt white. Make it, it's a little softer, a little chalkier. It will blend a little bit better, but as you can see, I'm making a lighter sky. Using my favorite blending tool, my finger. And I'll wipe off my hands for my next blending magic trick. And that's my Faber-Castell Soft Pastel white, which is shrinking down stroke by stroke. And I'm adding some clouds. As you look at the photograph, you can see that the clouds are more stratus rather than cumulus. The sky is very light with the clouds. Again, I'm using Canson paper. It's a pastel pad. This is a 9 by 12. And I'm using the reverse side because I prefer to use the smooth side, but you're welcome to use either side in your work. And I'm going to sneak out my white Rembrandt pastel. Rembrandt is among the softest of the soft pastels. There are others softer. Unison is softer. Sennelier, I think, is a little softer. There are several other. There are truly many, many fine pastels, soft pastels, from a variety of manufacturers around the world. And they go from affordable student grade to very expensive professional grade. And the reason they're more expensive is because of the amount of pigment that's used and the purity of the pigment that's used. And also the light fastness of the pigments. But the Faber-Castell student grade is good. Jackson has a very nice 12-piece set of full sticks that is very nice. They're soft pastels, they're easy to use, they blend well, and if you're just getting started, you really don't need the truly expensive ones. If you find that this is what you're doing, this is where you want to put your energy, then indeed, start with a smaller set of the more expensive ones. They are expensive. and you'll be adding more colors as you see, and as you move along, you'll see which color, depending upon whether you do animals or people or landscapes, you'll see which colors you use the most of. And you can actually buy sets that are portrait sets, wildlife sets, landscape sets. It will give you the base colors. But you can buy these sets with over 200 colors in them. But as I said, I'd start small and build up, see what you use. And most of these pastels are available in open stock, which means that if you just need a couple of colors to add to your collection, you can go online and order individual colors. Or you can go to the stores. Some of the stores, like Sam Flax, may carry the individual soft pastels. It's not quite true of the chain art supply stores. The chain art supply stores, which are also craft stores, have a lot of different open items, but usually not soft pastels. So you check around and you look, and you can also go online to Jerry's Artorama, Dick Blick, Amazon, Jackson's Paints, Cheap Joe's, lots of different places. When you are shopping online, though, keep in mind that delivery time will vary depending upon where the item comes from. And double check the prices, because sometimes the price will be cheaper in one place than another. So do shop around and get the best price for what you're buying. However, if you are going to have to pay shipping, factor that into the cost of the material you're buying. You may want to go with somebody else because you get it sooner. There we go. Now, what I'm doing there is bringing in the dirt. I'm using the yellow first. Then I'm bringing in the red, or the, I'm sorry, bringing in the blue first. Let's give us a bit of a green to start, and I'm going to blend that in. And I'm making it a darker green. And I'm having more blue than yellow. And I'm going to pull that down into the water because those colors are in the reflection of the water. I'm going to take a piece of the black on the sanding paper and let the dust go. The water isn't really blue. There's some reflection of the sky, but it's gray. So I'm going to add first the blue and the black. I'm just sprinkling it across the paper. And then I'll bring in a little bit of the white to lighten it a touch. And blend it with my favorite blending tool. You can see there's a very nice blue-gray. This will be lighter in some areas than others. And there's a lot of dust there from the pastel. But it doesn't take very much to create that much color. And you can see that the drawings that I did of the bathhouses or fishing houses, whatever they're called, are still visible in the water. And I'm going to bring the blue in to work on the blue house. And there's a blue trim on the yellow house. I'm going to include that. Lighten it up a bit. And I'm lightening up the blue with some white. Please keep in mind you can stop frame, work, come back and run it again. You may want to watch the whole thing through and then come back and work frame by frame or step by step. And there's the blue trim. That's in, you can see in the photograph, and I'm just using that soft white. Now you notice as I'm doing this, I'm really not allowing for the roof to be included in the image. And in the end, they will look as though they're reflected in the reflections. I don't want them to be solid. I'm adding a little red, and then I'll get some yellow because this particular house is orange. But I'm creating it not by drawing on the paper itself, but by using the sand block. And then I'll blend it in with my finger. And blend over it again with the yellow. And blow away the excess, because that's like the best part. And I'll bring that white trim. And I'm adding some yellow. As you look at the photograph, you'll see there is yellow reflected in the water. It's probably leaves and other natural debris, like grass. But when you look at reflected water, water in a pond or a lake, you'll see that there are ripples, and that the image is very rarely perfectly clear unless the water is really still. Still bringing yellow streaks across. You'll see that the water is also not completely gray or completely blue, but a mixture of both. And now I'm adding some white. So I have a few other ripples in there. And as those ripples are being added, the image of the cabins is being distorted. I'm going to start moving up and working on the dirt and plants on the surface. I'm going to make a darker green along the edge and then lighter and brown as we move along. I'm just bringing it down on its edge, the soft pastel, and dragging it down lightly. So I'll be blending there. Now, while I'm not demonstrating it here, I will in the future. You're also able to use brushes for blending the pastels on paper and even for applying them. There are brushes that are made for this specifically, and you can use watercolor brushes because they're the right texture. You wouldn't want to use acrylic brushes or things that are specifically meant for oils, simply because they'll be a little too hard. But in the future, I'll do a demonstration on using paintbrushes in applying your pastels. And I don't mean as paints. I mean the dry pastel with no additional water or alcohol. I'm just laying out the shrubs. And as I said, it's really important to practice blending. You'll see that you can create different shades and different hues. And you can use the blended colors and add another color to create yet a third or fourth color. But the only way you're going to get a handle on it is to practice. And I do recommend getting a decent color wheel. They don't cost that much. You can get them at any of the art supply stores or online, and you'll be able to see what colors are opposite the colors that you're working with. You'll see what colors you need to blend to make them. You can tell by looking at it. Just lightening those up with a little of the white. Now, if we're working with a larger piece of paper, I could do better detailing, but I'm really just doing color indications of shrubbery. The smaller the paper you work on, the more difficult it is to get fine detailing with pastel sticks. but you can do it with pastel pencils, and I will be doing a demonstration on pastel pencils in the future as well. I'm going to start. I'm starting with white on that blue because it's going to be a light blue. And you can go the other way. You can put the dark blue down and then add the white afterwards. But I find working this way, I'm better able to create a shadow with that layer of blue by adding just a little bit more along the edges of the trim and underneath the roof. Putting in a little bit of shadow underneath that house and bringing it down. The houses are on blocks, so there is shadow beneath them. And I'm going to add the window trim and the edge trim. I'm using a blending stump here. And actually, next to my finger, the blending stump is my next favorite blending tool. You can use cotton swabs, absolutely. The blending stumps are, of course, a little bit more money than using cotton swabs, but you never really have to throw them out, and they never really wear out. They will become colored. Whatever colors you're using on them, you can wipe them down with an eraser and paper towels and get most of the other colors off of it. But what's nice is that you can actually draw with them, applying the color to your page. And again, these are things you learn as you go along, what you like better. I've included the cotton swabs so that you don't have to worry about going out and buying more materials than you may want. And now I'm just creating a little shadow on the roof. And if you're working in just white on black paper. You can have a blending stump dedicated to just using it on white. And if you're doing graphite and charcoals, you can just keep those blending stumps that you use for that, so you'll always have color you can use and they'll always be ready to go. You know, if you're painting and you treat your brushes well, they'll last for a very long time. The only items you really will be running out of are the medium. So you'll run out of the pastels, you'll run out of your paints, you'll run out of your pencils. But these other materials, the blending materials, except for cotton swabs, of course, are going to last a very long time. And if you're interested in working on sanded paper, you can start by going to the hardware store and picking up a fine grade of sandpaper and practice drawing on it. It gives you a great deal more tooth. You can do a great deal more buildup. And sometimes I do buy the art sandpapers, but sometimes I like to work on that, and sometimes I prefer to work on the Canson paper. And I like to work on Strathmore's paper. And they come in different colors, and you can buy them in tones of grays and browns. You can buy large sheets and cut them down or use them as they are. Large sheets, 19 by 24, are, depending upon the color, run about $250 to $350 in case you want a background of a particular color. You can also use these sand blocks to sharpen graphite pencils and charcoal pencils. It doesn't take very much effort. But once you get to the wood part, you're going to need to use a razor blade or an actual pencil sharpener. But if you just want to make the point a little sharper, a few strokes on the sanding block will do that for you. And that's a pencil cap eraser. I'm just moving out some of that blue. And now we're ready for the last house on the left. I really should work from left to right, and I don't know why. Even though I know it's safer and it's cleaner, I invariably, unless I remind myself, work from right to left. No idea why that is. We write from left to right. It should be just as easy, but for some reason I insist upon doing that. Using the black to create a little shadow underneath the house. Use the blending tool to draw down that gray. And adding a little yellow to the shrubbery. And working on the cinder blocks that lift the houses from the ground. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit more red to make that a deeper orange. I could have left it lighter, but I like that deeper orange. And if I'd wanted to, I could easily have turned one of the other two houses into a greenhouse by adding its complement. Finishing off the trim with the yellow, and now I'm going to use the black pastel to create the roof and put in a little bit of shadow. Because what is nice when you're working with a small paper, you can turn it around and work in a way that's most comfortable for you. Now I'm going to go over to the yellow house using that same now dirty blending stump to create shadow under the roof. And the work is now complete. Reflected water. We've learned to blend some colors. Now, next time we're going to be working on the image of a great white egret, where you'll learn more about what goes into white. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to our next session.